by wrestling and music journalist Shin-Blade, sitting next to my bodyguard, Yaseen Mudassar.
It's been a while.
Yeah, who's a wrestler, champion bodybuilder, college wrestler as well.
I was a two-time All-American. I mean, my start was in college. So I wrestled all throughout college, and then, of course, wanted to try out the WWE route and did that for a little over 6 months. Now I've been working in real estate for the past year or so. I mean, I still work out and still go to the wrestling events for say, and I still go on the mat, and roll around with guys. But I've been a little busy,
Are you going to continue to pursue pro wrestling, or?
Right now it's kind of on a hold because
Right.
I've been working full time for about a year now. So what my business is, it needs a little bit of a lot of work in. And like last year, I think I was on the show. This was about maybe a little over a year ago.
Right.
And after that, I had WWE had recruited me, and then that had called me down for the tryouts and stuff. And then I was there for about 2 months. And the act they wanted me to play was just not going the way I wanted to. Because my background is Middle Eastern per se, and
right.
my dad's from Pakistan, and they wanted me to be this heel, this Pakistani heel, and we know at the time, there's a lot of hate, hatred and terrorism stuff going on, and I just didn't want a lot of that negativity coming towards me and my family per se.
My late friend Tiger Khan, who was one of my best friends. He was Indian descent, and ECW wanted him to do a like 7-Eleven stereotypical, serving Slurpee kind of gimmick.
Of course.
And he just said, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. So I guess the message here is playing to stereotypes doesn't always work. And I know Shin was telling me he's not a big fan of New Day, right?
It's another team I'm not a fan of called the Street Profits in NXT, which is the epitome of black coonery, if I can say it on radio. And
say whatever you want.
I think, yeah, I think I seen a couple articles about you when you were in WWE, if I'm not mistaken. They did a couple pieces.
I was with them for about 2 months. Like I went to for the tryout, and they flew me out and stuff. And then when I came back, and then they said, "We want you to come join." So I was there for about 2 months, and of course the salary they were offering was definitely not enough for me to start off. I was working, I was actually a bouncer at a couple of clubs at night. So I was like, okay, I'm doing this, and it's hard for me to even make a living, and what they're wanting me to do in the future is not something I'm comfortable with. So it was one of those things where, and I had developed a real estate passion. This is over 2 years. I'd worked in real estate, done investment properties, some flips out of state. So I was in the process as well with with the real estate. So when that happened, I got a job offering from Douglas Elliman here in Dix Hills, and so I ended up taking that, and I started working full time in real estate. I mean, my passion was always mat wrestling per se.
Okay.
Collegiate wrestling, Olympic wrestling, which is what I did for over 7 years. WWE was something I did for, I think, a little over 6 months because I was told to, start training and learn the professional, the ring and stuff and bumps and moves by actually Jerry Briscoe. He's the one.
He was the real deal.
He was the one that called me and said, "Hey, Yaseen, I want you to join NYWC and learn some professional wrestling for 3 to 4 months, and we'll call you down, and we'll see, how it goes from there." Which is why I took the professional wrestling route for about, I believe, 7-8 months, which is what I did.
Well, you just did a big shout out to one of my friends in NYWC, Shane, who's one of the owners.
Yes, Shane is great. He's a great guy. He's very funny. He's very, very, a very nice person.
Oh yeah,
to be around.
And one of my friends, Willow Nightingale.
Yes,
female wrestler
she's great.
Has a career, and it's just that stereotypes are so big in wrestling. If you're colored, that you have to play this type, and I don't agree with a lot of them. Sometimes it does get over, like The Godfather becoming a pimp in 1998, and everybody loved it. But now, to me, it's like tap dancing.
It also had to do
Tap
with
dancing is an art. Tap dancing is not a stereotype.
Well,
Greg
Soft Shoe.
What?
Excuse me.
Gregory Hines.
Well, Gregory Hines, great tap dancer. Bojangles, love the movie. But Soft Shoe, kind of that type of thing. Dance boy dance type thing.
yeah.
So, I mistaken this guy in the green room for the Iranian Hawk a while ago. That guy is huge.
Yes.
Like, seriously.
What about this Jinder Mahal, making him a champion?
They're going into that market.
Yeah. That's what
it's all a business. Well, India is the second most popular country in the whole world, and Jinder is pretty much the only somewhat decent wrestler that WWE has that's Indian, at least at this time, that could actually, like, Khali could barely even move.
Right.
Jinder can actually move.
Sure.
I mean, he's not, he might not be considered, one of the best wrestlers.
It's not AJ Styles, but he can work.
He could work. He could work. So, them being a Vince being, businessman, he made Jinder Mahal the champion when they went into India. And Jinder ended up beating, I believe, Orton when they were in India, and now back here in the U.S., he's made him into like this heel. But it's catching those billions of people that are living in India are tuning it into WWE and turning the TV on and watching them.
I'll tell you something amazing though. It was the April or May event when Jinder won the title, and people in Chicago were so dejected. But when you hear the Indian commentary of it, it's like everybody's celebrating. So you think everybody's celebrating, but you see these dejected American faces when he won the title because Jinder Mahal was basically I like Jinder Mahal, but he was basically a quote unquote nobody, and all of a sudden he knocks Prince Devitt, Finn Balor out, gets a title shot, and he's like number 2 or 3 in the company.
Yeah.
And and I've been around great Khali, so I know what you mean by hardly moving.
Khali actually,
great guy though.
In India, wrestling is huge. Khali actually opened a company out there, and it's doing very, very well. Where Khali really doesn't have to work for the WWE because he's doing very good as a businessman, owning a company out there. So there's a lot of professional wrestling fans in India, which is the main reason why Vince ends up, going towards Jinder, because if he's will be able to attract billions of people towards the company.
And my friend Neon Ninja Facade is out there training fellow Indian wrestlers.
Oh, nice.
Also, as well, so he's coming back in about a couple weeks for Pennsylvania. Then he'll be back out there. So that's what he's doing.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Nikolai Volkov is a dear friend of mine, and he said when he was asked to play the evil Russian gimmick, he's from Croatia, and he didn't want to do it. But then Freddie Blassie convinced him and said, well, that is going to, portray the Russians. This was back during the Cold War, and it kind of worked. I mean, it really made him a huge mega star, Nikolai. And I mean, what's your take when the stereotypes actually work? I mean, Ivan Koloff was from Canada. He did great with the Russian gimmick. Right?
Same thing with Rusev. He's from Bulgaria, but they played him as Russian for a while.
Yeah, you're right.
It's funny how guys like that attempt to put on the accent, and most of the time it works. And then you find out that they're from Canada or Florida.
Or Iowa.
Yeah. Plenty of examples like that. But the Russian stereotype was always popular. There's a whole list of
we had
and
when I was a kid, it was the 70s, and you had everybody doing the Nazi gimmicks because World War II wasn't that long before that. It's 25 years before that, 30 years before, so it's still fresh. These guys would come in with Nazi flags, Baron von Raschke, Waldo von Erich.
We also saw Evan Ginzburg in an outfit too.
Watching wrestling for since the beginning. What do you think? What direction is wrestling heading in? I know with the UFC, a lot of the people that don't believe in professional wrestling anymore, their fan base has come down so much, and the quality of the wrestling is not as great as it was back in the 90s.
I think the positive side is the internet and media.
Well, where is it heading to? Is it going back up, or is it just heading downwards now?
I think what's positive is like for example, we had all the British guys come to New York,
Yes.
and we knew who they were because of the internet, because of TV, because of media. The Japanese guys come to New York, we know who they are. The world is a smaller place, and it's more a buyer's market. Let's say you find WWE Juvenile. You could be a New Japan fan. You could be a British wrestling fan. You could pick and choose. There's something for everybody today. I think that's a positive. It's I think WWE basically controlling the United States is a negative because it's they're number one, and number two is such a distant number two. You can't make a dent in it.
Well, what's weird is about WWE, number one is the bad comedy we see on Monday nights, and it feels insulting to the intelligence. But what I didn't know was overseas that GFW, TNA, Impact Wrestling is like number one, is ahead of WWE. I never understood it because I guess in the States, or the way they put it out, it looks such a train wreck. And I support a lot of those guys because they're friends of mine, and some of them in WWE, even the Jimmy Dream, who's James Ellsworth now. Some reason, but now with WWE is like bad comedy, 5-minute matches between two world-class athletes. What was it, Evan? 3 commercials and 6 minutes of wrestling.
Yeah, I mean,
and it cheapens it.
In the course of the 3 hours of Raw, you could basically watch it in 20 or 30 minutes on a TiVo and get what you need to get. Some good wrestling. There's too much talk, stilted dialogue, commercials, endless hype for pay-per-views that are generally meaningless, and bad comedy. Here's a basic with comedy. It's supposed to be funny.
Exactly. And the lack of charisma of some of these guys. Take Roman Reigns. The guy needs an injection of personality. He may be a wonderful guy. He's got the look.
Just let him wrestle. He can't talk. If you can't talk, you can't talk.
Yeah, and going back again.
I could talk. I can't wrestle, so I'm not wrestling. I'm talking.
Brock is a prime example. That's why Paul Heyman is, great with Brock, because Brock can't talk, but he's the best wrestler.
In the old days, you would give the bad talkers a Lou Albano or a Grand Wizard and let them talk for you. And every once in a while, you would get a great talker, like a Morocco was a great talker. Billy Graham was a great talker. So it was twice as good. You had 2 great talkers. But
you ever remember Morocco doing a promo eating the sub?
Morocco, not only I love the heels who are funny. You see, that's an art, Not only could they intimidate you, they could make you laugh. Bobby Heenan, the Valiant Brothers, Albano, Graham, Ernie Ladd. You missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't miss this match. That's funny. That's funny. I mean, right?
Well, I mean, a lot of these indie wrestlers now, you were talking about talking. A lot of these indie wrestlers now are so focused on spots in their match.
They can't talk.
They gotta do this. They want to get all their stuff in during the match. Then when you ask them for an interview or promo, it's like, I don't know what to say. It's just like, just let your personality come out.
In the old days, they would go, November 1st, Madison Square Garden, you're wrestling so-and-so, and they would just improv a promo. Boom, 3 minutes, just total improv, like a stand-up comedian. I mean, it's an art. It's an art.
Well, I think it's bad also that WWE has I mean, in a way, I think it's bad when WWE Performance Center has promo classes.
Oh, come on. Either you have it or you don't have it. Either you could talk or you can't talk.
Rest in peace, Dusty Rhodes, for helming that class.
Well, Dusty Rhodes was a great talker.
Yeah,
great talk.
I don't know who does it now though, but Dusty Rhodes, I heard many stories that he could bring it out of you. Bobby Heenan was another one, which he had a snap every time you would say something to him. He would just snap back. Him and Jim Cornette were like my top 2.
Grand Wizard. Can't forget the Grand Wizard.
That's right.
Ernie Roth.
That's right. Yeah. Cornette, you wanted to belt him, and he was funny, and he was sharp. That's a gift.
He's still around too.
Yeah. Also, there was a situation last night in the Midwest where he got into a confrontation with Santino Marella at some kind of convention because he got
recent.
Yeah, it was like last night. It was like
the Cobo Arena reunion.
It was like 2005. He got fired because he slapped Santino because he no-selled. I think it was Mordecai, Kevin Fatigue, who's Kevin Thorne now. And he slapped me,
Message
got
to
fired.
promoters: don't slap the wrestlers.
So that's what happened. Santino became Santino Marella. Everybody, this comedy act, everybody loved him. Neck injury, sidelined him. Jim Cornette does his podcast, which is hilarious. I catch him on YouTube. So.
Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express were the greatest tag team of all time. You're going to say the Grahams, but I came a little later. But who's the greatest tag team of all time, Julian?
That's also. I mean, I would say definitely the Grahams, but you can't count out the Road Warriors. I mean, the Road Warriors have
Very charismatic.
I remember meeting them at a fundraising event in Boston for muscular dystrophy. A buddy of mine worked for muscular dystrophy. He calls me up and he says, "Boy, do I have a job for you. You can volunteer to be in charge of ringside security, escorting the wrestlers to the ring, and then just standing around and looking like you're enjoying myself." And I remember Paul Heyman was with the Road Warriors, and at the and after the show there was a dinner, so you got to meet the guys if you were a volunteer or you'd made a donation. And Paul Heyman wouldn't let the Road Warriors go out of character.
Yeah, they were tremendously charismatic. They would walk down the aisle, the place would just explode before they did anything. The Road Warriors.
They had Paul Heyman as their manager.
Yeah, Precious Paul.
Paul
Ellering.
Ellering.
Sorry.
Paul Ellering.
I'm sorry.
I was thinking about that. I was like, Paul Heyman. That would have been a nice mix up to make him heel. So, also his daughter's wrestling now. Rachel Ellering. She's a powerlifter. She used to be a powerlifter at Minnesota. Now she wrestled in the Mae Young Classic. She's a sweetheart. But she's very fierce in the ring.
It's in the blood. It's interesting how many generations of wrestlers are around, or their kids are around, or their grandkids are around, and I guess it just becomes a family thing.
That's right. We're going to take a very brief time out, but I just want to quickly acknowledge our sponsors: Timothy Dark Music, Rad Recording Artist Development, Dr. Scott Bernstein, DDS, 1000 Northern Boulevard, Great Neck. I'm going to go to him this week because my tooth is killing me. And the newly released book, Frederick Gilbert Bourne, Forgotten Titan of the Gilded Age, by Philip Savaggio, which is about a great humanitarian from the previous century. Unlike many of the people running the country today who are not great humanitarians. Frederick Gilbert Bourne, Forgotten Titan of the Gilded Age. I'm going to take a very brief time out, and Jim Savali is going to play some local music. And Jim, you're always looking for local music to showcase. Tell us about that.
We're always looking for local unsigned musicians to send us their music so we can play it on our playlist.
That's right. That's right. And we'll be back.
And when you look at the show later and you see my face go in the camera, that was an accident. I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
People are probably like, what the hell is this guy doing?
You're better looking than many of my guests.
No,
so
no.
you're okay.
No, I don't think so. All right,
Anyway,
there you go.
we'll be right back, folks. All right, man.
You man.
I'm gonna try to